Hello. We are starting this new session of the EAVI Conversations. I just give you the time to settle, to be on as comfortable as you may on your sofa or at your desk. Very few people at their desk these days. And I am Paolo Celot. We are organizing this EAVI conversation that I will tell you a bit more in a moment. And our guest today is Divina Frau-Meigs. Yeah, I think that maybe we can see each other with here is Divina. Hi, Divina.
Hello, Paolo. Hello, everybody.
So Divina is another big name of media literacy. She's a professor of media sociologist at the Université Sorbonne Nouvelle in France. She acts as an expert for UNESCO, the European Commission, the Council of Europe, and many other government bodies. She has written many books, publications. You can find a lot of Divina. I think your latest work is the Handbook of Media Education Research. That is something that is very recent, is it? When has it been published?
Thank you for mentioning it, Paolo, because it's just come out, but it's taken 3 years to make, because we were trying to make it via IMCR, the NGO for Media Research, which has a big section on media education research. And so it reflects the work of our NGO, and it's worldwide. So we have chapters from lots of parts of the world and very different takes on media literacy. We do the history of it, the politics of it, the pedagogies, and the future trends. So I hope you'll enjoy reading it.
It's quite expensive, I see. What, $210?
Yes, and believe me, we were very annoyed with that, but it's the policy of libraries these days, or at least publishers. They aim at big libraries, and if they place 300 or 400 of these books, they are happy.
I see.
And we're a little bit annoyed at this point.
It's a good investment, that's all. Divina she's also conducting a number of initiatives and projects. You can find videos, so publication resources is all over the place. So if you are interested, obviously go online. And you will have a lot of TED Talks and really in all different formats. Before we start our conversation, I just remind the audience that the idea of this conversation is to offer a space in which we get the ideas in a summarized way. Is really a privilege for the participant because they will hear about your years of work in an hour or so. Is for free. Is quite a service.
Most of my lectures are for free, thank God. But this contract with Wiley was not for free. I'm sorry.
Hopefully, is a kind of another kind of seeds that will grow and give good fruits. And the people can for sure learn a lot of quality information from you. I think that you are very well placed for this conversation, and thank you for having accepted to join us.
Pleasure.
You were with me back in 2006, I think, at the expert meeting set up by the European Commission of Media Literacy. Were you? No?
Absolutely, yes.
15 years ago.
We have a dinosaur. What's nice about the book is that I think it puts media education research in libraries. It's official, it exists as a science, as a research field, you know, we're not just on the margins anymore.
Yeah, and in fact, about this, maybe we can also mention that there is, it puts the emphasis on this, you know, that there are two ways of call media literacy. UNESCO prefers to call it a media information literacy, and in that case, is very correct, no? Because it's they put and they underline the aspect that you have just mentioned, libraries and information. Which is a very good way to do it. I call it media literacy just to make the story short, but it's the same stuff. If you agree, I would start with some maybe obvious things that are about the importance of media literacy still these days. You are in France, and a couple of weeks ago, I think an attacker killed a teacher of history that had shown some cartoons about the Prophet Muhammad, and while he was doing a lesson of freedom of speech, no, he was teaching media literacy, wasn't it?
Yes, we are under shock at the moment. I'm still myself in consideration because it was a professor of history, and in France, since the Je suis Charlie attacks in 2015, there was two pillars that were developed at school. One was civics education, and one was media literacy. So this teacher was a professor of history, and so he was doing it in the sense of civics. And but I can't help thinking it was media literacy because it was about cartoons, about freedom of expression, which is to say our topics. It was because at the moment there is a lawsuit against all the ones who contributed to the attacks of against Charlie Hebdo. So it's as if I was back 5 years ago when I was a director of CLEMI, and we had to deal with that, and the teachers going back to school the day after. Now we have to deal with the teacher going back to school next Monday. And so it brings back, of course, all the importance of freedom of expression and how it's important to teach it and to pursue these values. And I'm asking myself, and I've been asking myself for the last week, you know, how would I go about it? I mean, if I was to help teachers next Monday, or for the first sort of martyr of media literacy in France, somebody killed for teaching that. And of course, I would do it in a holistic way. It's one of the characteristics of media education. We would have to look at social networks, because the father who called on the fatwa, who called, asked for punishment of that professor, did it online on social media. And the young man who took it upon himself to do it got it via social media, but probably because he'd been radicalized in some other ways. And so it brings us to all these issues, of the hot issues of media literacy today. Radicalization online, does it exist or not? Disinformation, because the father acted on a lie from his daughter. She did not attend the class, but she said she did, and she saw these cartoons which she hadn't seen. So, you know, it's a concatenation of terrible timing, if you want. But for us, it's also concatenation of what themes we would deal with as media literacy, you know, the violence, the integration or exclusion of people, the Salafism, you know, religious integrism, and how this conflicts or not with Republican values in France. And then, of course, the media sphere that covered it, but in very spotty ways, before getting the whole picture, to finish with education per se, you know, and how you recuperate that, to make it into not a lesson, because we're not giving lesson, but to an understanding of how to be together in society. And I think media literacy is probably the best spot at the moment to go about it.
Do you think that you have been involved? We have been involved in a number of studies and about media education specifically, and having is a media education taught in schools, and we always came up with a number of recommendations about is having is at a compulsory subject or as a separate subject to at least in primary or secondary schools. Maybe in France is slightly better than the average of other countries, but is not still there. No, why is it that governments are so slow in no, should not people all the items that subject that you have mentioned that conduct to this terrible crime, and but every day they promote other maybe less terrible but still not good ones. They could be understood better, and if education and schools would do more about media education. We know that in the long term, it's only education that can equip students and people with the skills to live well in this environment. Why is it that is not happening fully?
The conversation I sometimes have with Sonia Livingston, actually, because she is the one who says, schools are the best platforms for media literacy. For a long time, I've been saying we do it where we can. And it's always been done by civil society associations and in off-school, informal settings, because it's so much a project-based approach. And for a long time, it's been sustained by NGOs. But it's true that we've also been pushing for it to be included in schools. And we have a double bind in media literacy because we want to be a different field than the traditional fields, to avoid being in silos. And so everybody says it should be transversal, any teacher should be able to do it. So this professor of history, French, Belgium, whatever. But we also know that this is a risk of it being diluted and disappear. So at the moment, the press, for instance, and the teachers who are mobilizing in here in France are the lobbyists for history, not the ones for media literacy, because it's diluted. So there is a great advantage because in this way we are everywhere, but as a result we're also nowhere. And so the other solution is to keep it transversal, but also have a dedicated subject matter. So in France, we've done that, asking librarians in schools to be trained in media literacy, and this is now being done more and more, but it's very spotty. In some regions, they are very well trained in media, but most of the time they're still very much trained in information and documentation. And so the topics that we deal with, stereotypes, gender, disinformation, cyberbullying, whatever, librarians have a hard time, embracing them and making sure that it carries well over with other teachers, with the parents, etc. So that's the situation in France. I think the rest of Europe is very heterogeneous. We know that Nordic countries are making a push for multiliteracies, in which they include media very early on. Some other countries, the post-communist ones, are still struggling on how to reform education, reform media, and pushing for media education. They're among the most convinced, but it takes time.
Yeah,
to answer your question, I think it has to do with politicians and decision makers who still think that the media should not enter the schools, or that teaching critical thinking about media will also lead to critical thinking about how they do politics, of course.
That's a good point. Is up to which extent that they are in good faith, because this could be to pursue the interest of citizens, could be against their own interest, but is a bit is a bit banal as a sentence, but is commercial and political interest. They are often quite antagonist to the interest of people. Still, I hope and I think that something has happened, is slowly but in the right direction. You are indeed right in saying that for instance, the role of libraries is very important in northern countries, but other countries they don't have librarians, and libraries are less important. What I noticed recently is an emphasis on towards a civic context, so that people can educate in order to be responsible citizen. That is also, a bit moralistic, no? Is what does it mean to be responsible? I've seen, I think, one of your video in which you were saying that don't be responsible, or don't be. Is there to go against the system.
Right. Well, I don't remember saying that, but I think responsibility is the end product. It happens at the end. Once you've been trained and educated, then you realize, oh, I have to make this choice, and I am more careful. So I think that it's true, though, that civics has sort of recuperated it, and for me, I have a problem with that, because it's much less motivating for young people. And very often civics is very top down, it's about teaching the institutions, or in France, for instance, the values of a republic. It's so abstract for young people that it's very hard to touch them. And it's not based on their own experiences. The advantage of media literacy is that media literacy defends all these values, and especially the European brand of media literacy that we've all helped create. We are human rights based, very much so compared to other types of media literacy, like educomunicación in Latin America, or consumption-based media literacy in Nordic America. So we teach these values, but using the children's and the users' own problems, issues, so that they can be empowered and see right away the power of the action. I wanted to moderate something that you'd said before about it has changed or not. Paolo, if you allow me, it's true that since 2015 and the second democratic catastrophe, as I call it, of disinformation and problematic elections and referenda in Spain and Catalonia in England, I think this has a hit to politicians. And there is definitely, at the official level, more than just, lip service to media literacy. It still remains the issue of the means. But we now have a directive on audiovisual media services that compels the member states to make reports every 3 years, even compels platforms to take care of media literacy. We have DG Connect, the division that takes care of media literacy, that has this expert group on media literacy to which we both belong. And so, I think it's moving. It's attached a lot to fact-checking. And in a way, fact-checking has disbalanced us. It has sort of stolen the show from us, as journalists have been going into classrooms, and fact-checking and media literacy have been converging in some way. So at the moment,
tell me, we get to fact-checking because I'm interested in having your opinion. You were a member of the high-level group that the Commission has set up on disinformation. And indeed, I see the Commission from here. EAVI is in Brussels. Obviously, they are trying their best. Also, the Eurova cabinet is really. They seem to try their best. DigiConnect for certain aspects. Do you remember that when we were working some time ago, it was a DG Information Society. In this time of disinformation is quite hilarious that there was such a, is a name. The Director General was called, which is the equivalent of a ministry, is for those that are not familiar with European affairs. It was called DG Information Society, and now is DG Connect. And indeed, they are, you were mentioning that the media literacy is now more popular for certain aspect, is with the disinformation aspect, that is a scam that has become popular because I mean, to me, is without being too much. I mean, people that know me knows that I'm not very diplomatic, but it's quite clear that what has happened from is the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Brexit, is the election interference. There is also the Council of Europe that has worked a lot on this. Is pretty clear for people that want to see that there's been some sort of effect. Is through the social medias particularly, and so is the integrity of our democracies has all of a sudden become a stake, and therefore, oh well, how can we do it? And Europe is and I think is Europe, and it cannot be Russia or China or the States these days. So let's hope that they will do something good soon. They come up with okay, let's tackle this information. You are in the group, and then the group decides some actions. So do you think that one of them is more fact-checking? Do you think that fact-checking is effective in tackling disinformation?
We are still doing the research out there about the efficiency. What's clear is that there's been huge progress among the fact-checking community in terms of the tools that they've come out with. So they provide us in media literacy with an entry by tools, like plugins. For instance, I have a project that is called UCheck that works with the INVID plugin developed by the EU H2020 program. And it's a plugin to debunk fake videos and fake images. For us, of course, from the point of view of media literacy, what we see is great. It's about visual literacy, and God knows we need more about it. We need to understand more how images work with the brain, with the online world, etc., etc. For them, it's mastering the tool. And of course, so we have to come to terms in media literacy with, do we use the tools? We usually embed the tool in understanding the concepts and the notions of information, quality information, credibility, etc. So that's been my task, for instance. But it is interesting that fact checkers have been providing us with that. And these tools are getting better and better. But they're also improving and hearing what we're doing. For instance, again, this INVID plugin is now adding a database of debunks, which is to say already fake news that have been verified and debunked by journalists, so that teachers can use them without having to go through the tool, but just to be able to show how it works on social media, how things are truncated, context dismantled, etc., etc., what is typical of fake news. So I think we are reaching a point where fact checkers have now a very good network internationally. They are a community that helps each other a lot, but they're mostly journalists. Media educators are not journalists. They claim they're not, and I think they're right. They're a mix of librarians, teachers, young youth workers, NGO leaders and workers, etc. And so they need the benefits of that, but they have to have a larger view and present a larger view of what media education is. The risk of fact checking is to concentrate us again just on the negative parts of what is happening, especially online, when we always balance the risks and the opportunities of both. Even though at the moment, I have to say, I could say that normatively, you know, abstractly, yes, we've done very well, and in a way, the social media have helped enlarge democracy and give voice to the marginalized and the underdogs. But empirically, especially with a recent case in France, of course, the jury is out there about how good or how bad they are in terms of how they can come against values of the Republic or values of media literacy. And it means we have to reconsider this democracy and the civics in the light of what is happening. How does a democracy allow for dissent, for debating without censoring, without punishing, keeping the different voices together? It's really very complicated. I wish I had a solution. The long-term solution, as I always say, the best filter is media literacy.
And the role of media is, you may hear, is as a background, there are people from Armenia that are protesting here in the street. Is near my window. Is, I don't know whether you hear it, but is I do hear a lot. Is yeah, is so is we is from one end there are the user, the recipients as, and that we need the skills, media education, and then is as you mentioned, journalists and fact checkers maybe try to facilitate the process, but there is a responsibility also in for the media themselves, no? Social media in particular. Is, do you think they are doing enough? I've read that the last is a document of this information in which, for instance, Facebook was saying that they have deleted an enormous number. I mean, 4 billion fake accounts is in 3 months. I mean, is a phenomenal number. Do you think is enough? Can they do more? Would they be? How can they be convinced to? Don't we need some rules that they will be obliged to follow? What do you think?
Well, that was one of the purposes of the expert group on disinformation. We had them around the table, and they came because they didn't know what else to do without going into censorship or self-censorship. We ended up with a proposal that is typically a soft regulation, soft law proposal of asking them to come with a code of good practice, a code of good conduct, that is being evaluated regularly. That is one of my inputs, actually, and the inputs of civil society was to say, well, we don't want them to just do that code of conduct and then when the panic is over, just sit on it. We've seen that before with television and video games. And so we said this has to be evaluated regularly. And this is the stage where we are. Definitely before elections, see who is paying for advertising and things like that. And so that was one of the big things that came out of that expert groups. Since then, as you know, there's been COVID, and there's a lot of fake vax, fake information about vaccine and health. And that has changed their position more, I think, than the political issues, because they realized, and they said that it was a public health matter and a world public health matter. And so they started removing much more. It's still very hard for us. We conducted some audits here in France with the French Media Regulation Authority to see what they were doing. They have very different strategies: Twitter, Facebook, Google. They are more and more removing fake accounts, and they know how to do that, and they can do it automatically, which is why they can remove huge masses and it doesn't take that many people. But then they have much more difficulty with our issues, with the media literacy issues, which require, in fact, human moderation. You know, when can you tell that this tweet or this post is harassment? How can you tell here or there that there is a Salafist threat in this video? Because it implies moderators who actually know the languages of the different countries, who are aware of the local politics of the countries, because these incidents are very often connected to real life situations. And I think here they're not ready, and they're not putting enough personnel there. So what I would like to say is, in fact, these big social media need media education. They need moderate media education to feel the climate, to be able, you know, all our skills are soft skills, they're gray, non-regulated issues. You know, hate speech is regulated not everywhere, not in the US, but how do you regulate fake news? Who says it's true, who says it's not true? And there I think we all agree with them and with these platforms that nobody should be the tribunal of truth. That's not the point. We in media literacy, we say we just want people to be able to make their own opinion, but with information that is integral, and the integrity of information. And then maybe at the end we get the integrity of democracy that you were talking about. We cannot make enlightened decisions for like voting without having the proper.
Yeah, now is I've seen a bit of a paradox that is social media that are demanding for more rules, and they say we want more rules. Just let us know what we have to do. If we don't do it, we will be happy to pay sanctions. And obviously the we should respond to that is saying, okay, these are the rules, but if we are still in the phases of analysis, which indeed is very challenging because no one knows exactly what we have to do. But simple things is like, come on, they should pay is their tax, is in the countries that originate the revenues. And I really hope that Europe will push towards that, because I remember a ministry of France was saying that Facebook is paying less taxes in France than a producer of cheese, and so there are things that can indeed be improved quickly when it comes to bigger issues like democracy and critical thinking. Indeed, is very difficult to deal with. What's your dream? Divina? What would you like happening? Is you wake up tomorrow and say, okay, for media literacy and media education I would be really, really pleased to see that what would it be if you have this power?
Let me backtrack. I'm keeping the teaser for the end. What you were saying about the social media and the regulation issue, that's also where media literacy can come in. If we do the history of media, I mean, every time, especially American media, and American media are often born in America. You may have noticed, you know, CNN, et cetera, Facebook, internet. They always start with free speech, which is equivalent to free competition in America. It's all commercial, and all these media are always commercial. And then there's a moment when they ask for regulation. Partly because they want their signal to be very clear. They want to know what they can do and they cannot do, etc. And partly because the FCC puts pressure because of antitrust laws. And so we've had the famous case of Microsoft some time ago, AOL, etc. And now we see the same thing happening in America. These social media have matured. They know the business model. Now everybody sees their business model. And it's a business model that is trust building, that not trust in terms of confidence, but is monopolistic. It's building trust. And what you're going to see is antitrust law coming in, not even about the content, but just about the strongly acquired positions that prevent the rest of the market to function and new entrants to function. So I think in America, that's going to happen. What Europe does is different, but if America doesn't put the antitrust laws and doesn't modify the current Telecommunications Act, the article 230, I think, or 320, I have it down suddenly, of the Decency Act, who can scramble behind. They won't budge. They are heavily protected by California law. So we have to recreate in our own terms new social media here. The question we should ask ourselves as Europeans is, why don't we have social media that are European and that reflect our values? Why don't we? What is wrong with our system that prevents us from
what's right with our system? Who knows? I mean,
what's right? Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you for, I'll think about that one. But anyway, so I think when you teach the history of media, that helps understand the context in which they're evolving, and puts in the current debate in the larger perspective of what will happen. So there will be taxation in America. There will be probably antitrust laws, and that will compel the GAFAMs to change. It better be fast, because their power is so tentacular right now that it may be a problem. But they are bothered by these issues where they are seen as threats to democracy. And because these social media are still owned by their creators and founders, there's still a possibility to address their values a little bit that way. The problem is that since 2012, Facebook, Twitter, etc., have been on the stock exchange. So they're not just dependent on the founders, they're depending on the stakeholders. Anyways, but media literacy can give this perspective, and that way we don't panic. We know how to address the thing. So my question is, to answer your question, in Europe, yes, we have to support what is going on in America. And we have to also ask for our own sovereignty, and especially the sovereignty of the data of the European users, which we have done.
Transparency and accountability is what you have just said. Answer is a question that was asked from Facebook, from Aphrodite, that was asking about the differences in between Europe and the States, and talking about countries is Divina. Do you remember when we were in Saudi Arabia? For our listeners, just tell that we were invited for the very first conference on media literacy in Saudi Arabia, and we were speakers, but obviously you were also a woman, and so you were not allowed to stay with us in the main hall and conference hall, but you were confined with all the other women in a room without windows, because you should not have been visible from men, and is in an empty stage that was we were watching to. We were hearing you intervening through a speaker. Do you remember that? It was quite a peculiar experience, wasn't it?
Well, that was a very contentious issue. We almost left and created a diplomatic incident. We actually stayed because the women asked us to stay. The women there asked us to stay, and we thought we could help. The situation hasn't changed very much from there. These countries are not known for creating new media and not known for freedom of expression. Their Ministry of Education is also the Ministry of Propaganda and the Ministry of Religion. So I think they have not dissociated these three elements. And it doesn't mean we have to quit on them, but they're working in a very different mindset. But we have to go everywhere and try to help where we can. So that's definitely one of the roles of media literacy. It's a very generous community, our community. Things are changing, in my mind, very much in Africa. There's a lot of African countries at the moment that are holding, that are using the fact that this week is a global Media Literacy Week at UN level, to meet with decision makers, to speak in Parliament in favor of media literacy, targeting decision makers, exactly what we were saying before. If you want things to change, it's not going to be the teachers, because they'll move, they know what children expect and they know how to motivate them. It's really the decision makers that are then going to allow the resources to come in, the time, the training, and that's moving definitely in Africa. So it's moving in Latin America. Europe is definitely one of the leading countries. At the moment, Seoul, Korea is conducting also the global meal conference. So it's a bit everywhere. And
very global.
That makes me very happy, which brings me to my dream.
Yeah. I'm really curious about people's dreams.
My dream would be that this opportunity of several emergencies, the emergency on health, the emergency on the digital and teaching at home, the moving on the digital of teachers and things like that, the emergency of climate, would help us put a different curriculum in place with these questions as the basics, changing the basics. And that would imply also putting media literacy in the first curricula, not in the second hidden curricula, the one that can be flicked or gotten rid of if there's no time or no resources, but basic, everybody trained, a very global understanding, a holistic understanding that media can contribute to fighting the COVID crisis, to better education for children online, to pollute less, including by knowing that media pollute and social media pollute. And so I think we need, as media education people, activists, we really have to push for this first curriculum approach. It's done, believe it or not, in places like Taiwan, where they are really pushing in that direction for reasons that are very explicit, considering their non-existing status and state of danger right now. Yes, whenever I speak now online, and I've been in a lot of conversations these last few months, from wherever, the pro-poor approach in America, people are all saying, we can't keep the same curricula that was decided 2 centuries ago in the 19th century. And media literacy can help the transition be less brutal, because they help understand how it was and where we're going. So my dream is first curriculum.
Yeah, I think thank you for that. We work towards having your dream is becoming a reality, is including you, obviously. I think that it will happen. The matter is indeed, as you mentioned, when, because we risk that it will happen in 50 years' time, and it will be a bit too late or a waste opportunity. And so it depends very much on. You sort of implied that people are becoming more aware of the issue. Is maybe a sense of emergencies, as you have pointed out, is that we need to nurture, because it's really, it's not a risk anymore, isn't it? Is that the democracy here is it has happened, is not in a very good state, and it hasn't been in a very good state for the last 10 years, even within Europe. And we are trying to pay heavily the consequences. Thank you, Divina. I really enjoy our conversation. As usual, is minutes goes in very super quickly. We have questions here and there. Are there plans to? Sorry, I can't read this. Are there plans to media literacy for citizens beyond Europe? Okay, there are a number of people that are on our participants that are not coming from Europe. Is including from this one is from Nigeria, and is that are indeed asking and wanted information about in their respective countries or regions. So he was asking whether there are plans of media literacy is for citizens beyond Europe. But I think indeed you have replied already, particularly through the actions of that you are doing with UNESCO, isn't it?
Yes, it is a really a movement that we're trying to carry with the UNESCO chairs that are organized as a network. And we exchange resources, and we support each other in terms of strategies that have worked, not worked. If you remember, 3 years ago, I produced a book that was looking at the cross-country comparisons in Europe about policies. And I think that has put some seeds in people's minds about how to go about it, how to approach the politicians, how to approach the institutions, and the private sector as well. And we are a multi-stakeholder approach in media literacy. So that's one of the important things. What it brings in terms of changes, and I think that's what we're seeing, is that more and more the users, including the young people, are making us change. They are bringing in questions. They are challenging us, making us revisit how we present freedom of expression, how we represent dignity, these fundamental values. And so I think one of the dreams, of course, is that this curriculum I've been talking about should also be a curriculum that is sort of bottom up with the young people and the users and contributing to it. When you look at YouTube, I'm always astonished. I have children myself, but I also have students, and they take me to YouTube channels, and I tell myself, but this is amazing. This is fantastic knowledge. I had forgotten that what happened 300 years before Christ, and they explain it in such interesting ways. For instance, I was on a video about garum, this kind of spice that the Romans use, and that in fact is made of something really ghastly and disgusting, basically the guts of fish. But I remember this in one Latin course years ago, but now there's a whole, we can make videos of that and show how people ate and how it changed taste and et cetera. This is so refreshing, and it's because there's a curiosity that is compelling them. And YouTube is an interesting platform that way. Of course, it carries a lot of disinformation, but it's also producing channels that are channels for knowledge. And it's this part of knowledge that I would want to rescue from all the social media platforms and their contribution, the Wikipedia, that is fantastic. Take with us. This is we can also create platforms for knowledge and for sharing resources. And ideally, that's what I'd like to see.
Is a very good and a bit uplifting is a point is not together these energies that is out there, that is has already proven itself is through youth especially, or through these tools, but not just and yeah, is this expression that you use together to put together this resource, this knowledge is I think indeed is the solution somehow, that is to have or part of the solution, and also for ourselves. And this is a bit also one of the purpose of this conversation, to go out of our usual bubble and reach people that are indeed interested to they are asking what I can do to help. We have many questions, especially on Facebook. I don't think we have time to tackle them. Somebody is asking about computational literacy and thinking. Is a long debate about the various literacy. And I remember when you were mentioning about transliteracy in one of your project. But I have to stop here. Divina, is you want to add something more just to that you think is particularly important, a message or something that maybe we haven't tackled?
Well, I think you've asked me a lot of questions. I would like to say, and I think I speak up for the community here, wide community, is that media literacy is not just a catchphrase, and I'm worried that it's becoming a little bit that. It's something that is not improvised. It in fact requires a lot of resources, a lot of research and independent research. And I'm hoping that this message stays with us, and that we remain a community known for its generosity and its integrity. And that, I think, can carry us and push a vision where we all together continue evolving as the media evolve, but as a result also making democracy evolve.
Thank you. Is some of these skills and soft skills somehow or values, they are part of our elaboration in our new vision of media literacy that we have called the art of living in the digital environment. Maybe it can be a subject for another reflection. I want to thank you again. I want to thank all the participants, and this time I will not forget to thank all the EAVI people that are working here: Sotiria, Soti, and Laura, Andrew, Gulsen, Okan, Fulin, Fabio. They are really great. Is part of these energies that you were saying before. I am surprised every time how skillful they are and how good willing is to help they are. They whoever wants is we will insert in a moment again the slide where you can find the contacts of for Divina. Is Twitter. You are very, very active on Twitter, are you? And I remind people that want to send the feedback to fill the form that is. I don't know how you get it, but it's probably through our website, as well as having fun if you want to go to have a go with our EAVI test. One of the questions, if I remember, is how many European let's test Divina is for very last second. How many European companies are in the first 20 of internet companies is all over the world? 1, 0, or 4 European ones. Is the idea of the, I'm talking so you can think, is the idea of the test is that is to make people not to judge people is knowledge, but to make people reflect about how little we know about the media environment that we are in.
We don't have that many. I think of Bertelsmann, and I think maybe of a new Altis, which is a group of several European French ones, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. I haven't double checked.
In the first European company, well, I spoil a bit the test, but okay, I do it. Is the first European company is number 24. So in the first 20 there is none. Is they are all American and Chinese. So the now is again food for thought. Thank you, Divina. I hope we stay in touch and good luck with everything.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Oh, good luck to EAVI. Bye-bye.